They're still here, okay. Wow, it's a little unfair being at this point in the batting order, following Ryan and Tom and Jason and everybody else, the young man that just received that award. So it's a little intimidating here. And listen, I've done this teleprompter thing a couple times and I hate it. I totally screwed it up. I had this thing going where I was doing this when it was too fast and this one, and thinking I would change it. And so I told my staff that, listen, I'm just going to come up with some cards because I will embarrass myself, and I'm not good at it. So I'm going to do us all a favor, and I just scratched out some notes on the Amtrak tonight after doing a little bit of research. So I will tell you, I did do a little research here on the previous speakers at the Gala here, and you've all been here before, maybe a good bit of you. It's been such a special night. I will start with my date here tonight, Sarah. Now, this is not my wife. I just want to get that straight. A lot of people have been, this is my niece, okay, my sister's daughter, and a lot of people are looking at me a little askance, like, what am I doing with this? But, so Sarah, I walked up, and we were over here with a glass of wine, and I run into Vince Papale and his wife. And I'm like, awestruck. Vince Papale, I grew up in the 70s here when he was the stuff. And I go, and this is my daughter. And I said, this is Vince Papale, Sarah. Had no idea who he was. Had not even seen the movie. The only one in here. And so I went out in the hallway and called her mother, my sister, and said, do you know this thing about you? You got to really tune up your sister here, or my daughter. But Vince, it really was an honor to see you. But I did look at the previous speakers, and wow, they were all 4 stars. One was a Secretary of Defense, okay? They are all Navy or Marine Corps, they're generals or admirals, and so I think they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, asking an Army 3-star to come in here to do this today. But listen, I'm from this area, so I'm from I've been stationed all over the world. If you're in this business for a while, I've been in Japan and Korea, Iraq, and all kind of other places. And everywhere I've ever been, I say, when they say, where are you from? I say, I'm from Philadelphia, okay? And I'm proudly, I say that, yeah. I grew up watching the Eagles and the 700 seats and the yellow seats up there and all that stuff, but. And even when I was in Carlisle, I told people I was in the War College there, I'm from Philadelphia. But here tonight, I can't say that, okay? I'm from Bucks County, okay? And you can't, yeah. So you can't get away saying you're from Philly if you're, I remember somebody caught me with that somewhere. I said, you know what, sir, I'm from Philly. There's no cows in Philly, okay? So they're all out there in Bucks County. But my in-laws are still up there in Doylestown. Yeah. My mother-in-law, my wife's mother is 86, lives in the borough, and then my 2 brothers-in-law are there. So I get up there a good bit. And I remember my mother-in-law calling me when Travis was killed. And she didn't know who Travis was, but it was a big town, big deal in Doylestown. And she asked me if I had ever heard of him, and I hadn't. And I had gone running a couple years later through Doylestown, and I saw there was his name on, I think up by the courthouse, there's for those that have been killed, was there. I may have that a little off. And I might have even heard of the foundation, but I really didn't have a connection until about a month ago. I was asked to speak at the Eagles game. There was this Salute to Service event, and so it was an honor to come up there to represent the Army. And by chance, Ryan was there, Tom was there, young Travis was there. And wow, I spent about 2 minutes with Tom, and you can tell right away, after about 2 minutes talking to him, you're talking to a special person, somebody who's worth the time spending that you are at that point in time. You can just tell. And so I really felt honored just to be talking to him. I knew the background of it at that point. And then Ryan either spoke before me or after me at that thing. It was cold, and it was kind of a funny ceremony. And I was really struck by the point she was making that day. her composure there and the message she had about what the Travis Manion Foundation was all about. And my wife, actually, she bought the book. And you might not remember that, but Ryan signed the book, a really nice thing about service and stuff. And right after I got back I work at the Pentagon, and I got an invite to be here tonight. A couple days later, I said, yeah, no doubt, I'm going to be there. And I said, better read the book now that somebody might ask me about if I read the book, and I don't want to. And so a couple nights later, I picked it up, and I could not put it down. I think within the next day, I had read the book about Heather and Amy and Ryan's, how they dealt with a knock at the door, and how it turned their lives upside down, and how the grieving process went, very personal, and that how they came out eventually on the other side, focused on the future, stronger for it in a weird kind of way. None of us would ever want to go through it. And I know there's quite a bit of Gold Star family members out there. Nobody would ever trade places with you. But I was really, the book made a difference in my life. In fact, I went down to the bookstore in Arlington. I bought 2 copies right after I read it, because 2 women that work for me in the Pentagon, one lost her mother to an aneurysm, and the other one lost her husband to an accident within the last month. And I wrote a note, and I put them in there and handed it both to them. I said, you should read this when you're ready to read something like this. They both have read it, and we're very thankful for what it did for them. So for the 3 ladies that decided to do that and share that with everybody, something that nobody wants to go through, I thank you. Listen, to all the veterans out there, wow, it's an honor to be with you. A lot of this is about you tonight and what you do on continuing to serve in the ways you can to make our nation better. That's what TMF is about. And again, to our Gold Star family members, I have intersections with Gold Star family members since 9/11, like we all have. And it's humbling to be in your presence. And the fact that you're still serving after what you've been through shows what your character is about as human beings. So thank you for everything you've done. So, if not me, then who? Listen, it's an inspirational call to duty. It's a challenge for us all. And I'd like to share with you a story, I think, of somebody that lived up to that motto. There's a boy named, he was born in 1939 in Cornwall, England. His name was Cyril. And the 29th Infantry Division in the early 40s was based in his town. They were getting ready for the invasion of Normandy. And he fell in love with American soldiers. And he said, when I get old enough, I'm going to be a soldier. And in fact, that's what he did. At 17, in 1957, he joined the British Army. In fact, he volunteered to be part of their parachute regiment, kind of one of the elite forces in their army. Did that for 3 years. He gets out. In the 1960s, he joins the Northern Rhodesian Police Force and serves there for 3 or 4 years, a couple of years. He becomes fiercely anti-communist in that experience. And he meets an American there that says, listen, if you want to act on your anti-communism, you should come to the United States and join the United States Army. We're all about that right now. And I will tell you, just like Travis Manion, Cyril was a very focused young man. He had goals. He had objectives in life. And what he did, he picked up and he moved to the United States as a very young man. Went into a hostel, at the YMCA hostel, as the immigration process was going through. He changes his name to Rick because Americans can't figure out how to pronounce his name, and they were making fun of him. But he gets into OCS, Officer Candidate School, and he becomes a 2nd lieutenant in the United States Army. And in 1964, he goes down, that's when he gets commissioned, and he goes down and joins the 1st Cavalry Division down at Fort Benning at the time. He becomes a part of the 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry, Gary Owen. An infantry unit, an airborne mobile unit, a part of that unit, and soon after that, the next year in 65, they deploy to Vietnam. And in November of 1965, Rick and his platoon do an air assault into the Ai Drang Valley. Becomes an infamous, famous battle, one of the fiercest fights the U.S. Army has ever undertaken. If you've read the book or seen the movie, We Were Soldiers, that's what that fight was about. 155 soldiers killed in about a day's time, with about 400 or 500 soldiers on the ground surrounded by 5,000 or 6,000 North Vietnamese soldiers. Not the Viet Cong, they're actual regiments from North Vietnam were down there at the time. Now, Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, at the time called Rick, the best platoon leader he had ever seen. And Colonel Moore grew up to be Lieutenant General Moore, was a no-kidding war fighter, so that was his thoughts of Rick as a young lieutenant. And if you've ever bought the book, if you've read the book, there's a photo of an infantryman with his M16 with a bayonet on it, because they had to have bayonets in that fight, at the ready. That was Lieutenant Rick in that photo. So, and in that fight, just like Travis, Rick earned the Silver Star, the Purple Heart, and the Bronze Star. Rick comes back. He departs the Army in 1966, and he actually stays in the reserves, and he retires in 1990 as a colonel. So, where were you on 9/11? We all know the answer to that, if you're old enough, and we all are here tonight. I was a tank battalion commander at the time at Fort Hood, Texas, in the woods, training for some silly deployment that was not tied to anything because we weren't preparing for anybody at the time. Well, Rick was on the 44th floor of the South Tower of the World Trade Center, because at that point he was the director of security for Morgan Stanley. He was there at that same job in 1993 when the building was bombed, if you remember that, and he developed, in response to that, a detailed evacuation plan. He said if it happened once, it can happen twice. And much to the chagrin of all the Morgan Stanley employees, about once every other month, he did a fire drill. He did an evacuation drill, made them walk down 30 and 40 floors down the stairs in preparation for something that probably would never happen, but just in case. So on 9/11, as we all know, the North Tower, he was in the South Tower, the North Tower was struck as 8:46 a.m. And I know where there's a firefighter named Sullivan out here somewhere. Yeah. Thanks for your service. It was an honor to speak to you earlier. Rick, the PA announcer comes in, hey, the North Tower's been struck, stay where you're at, we're all safe here. Rick disregards that. He picks up his bullhorn and he starts running up down about 10 floors. 2,700 employees from Morgan Stanley is who he is responsible for at that point in time. And he orders them all to evacuate the South Tower. As that's going on, he's singing Cornish hymns from his homeland to calm their nerves, just like he had done 36 years earlier in the Ia Drang Valley to his soldiers in his platoon that were under fire. He called his wife in the middle of this, and he said, stop crying. I have to get these people out. If something happens to me, I want you to know I've never been happier. You made my life. 2,700 employees from Morgan Stanley, all but 6 of those made it out that day, thanks to Rick's decisive action. Now, during the evacuation, the second plane hit the South Tower as he was evacuating his employees. And at the bottom of the stairwell, and that happened at 9:03 that morning, at the bottom of the stairwell, his friend said, Rick, listen, you've done your duty. Your folks are out. Let's get out of here. But Rick said, you hear the screams up there. There are more people. I have to help them out. He could have said, if not me, then who? It's harder doing cards than just reading something, and you're starting to think about things a little more. So I apologize on that. Rick Rescorla was his name. He's an Englishman, an American immigrant, a Vietnam War hero, an Army officer, a veteran, Morgan Stanley, director of security, a husband, and a father. He was last seen climbing the steps of the South Tower when it collapsed at 9:59 that morning. So Rick and Travis, they're just shining examples of Americans who live with a sense of purpose and duty that made others around them better, and when the chips were down, acted and thought of others before themselves. That is what the Travis Manion Foundation is all about. Engaging veterans and Gold Star family members to get them back to that sense of purpose that we all want in life. As somebody who's getting out of the Army here after it'll be 38 years when I retire, I'm probably going to come and find you, okay, to find some purpose. But they empower Americans in that predicament to achieve their goals. They reignite a sense of purpose that's out there that people want. I've got 2 kids in the Army, and they don't know it, but they have that sense of purpose, and if they get out, they're going to miss it too. And it results in better and stronger Americans, and it makes our nation better as a result. So to the Travis Manion Foundation members, thank you for supporting such a noble cause. It's been so inspirational to be around you tonight. I've done countless of high-end events, spoken at things all over the world like this, and not much comes to, if anything, has come to the measure of what we're doing here tonight and how humbling it is. You do build stronger and better Americans who are all for it. You produce citizens of character. Somebody said it tonight when you talk about character. What is that? And it was kind of mentioned. It is doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, even when nobody's looking. So you believe that playing by the rules, doing hard work, treating others with dignity and respect leads to the collective good of our great nation. So to the supporters out here of the Travis Manion Foundation, thank you for your generosity. I think I speak for the members. I'm not a member. I'm going to be one here, I think. I don't think... I think I speak with the members that they don't take your support for granted. And I think they're probably pledging they want to continue, earn your continued support and respect moving forward. So as it was mentioned to somebody earlier up here, speaking more eloquently than me about how it's pretty easy to become pessimistic about our nation. All you got to do is turn on the TV or pick up the newspaper and it's all negative, it's crazy. But it's nights like tonight where it snaps you back to reality. That thanks to great organizations like TMF, that I continue to have so much optimism for the future of our nation, thanks to what you're doing to make citizens so committed to the future of it. So thanks to Ryan for all you're doing, leading such a great organization from kind of my hometown. I'm from Washington Crossing, not too far away. But what TMF is doing, making a positive difference in our world and our nation, is an honor to get to know you here and your family here tonight. God bless you all. And since it's 2 days away, go Army, be Navy.